Thank you. Thanks for coming. And I was thrilled when I heard that I was going to be here with Karen, who's a physical theater cohort and good friend. Like Karen and like many artists that you probably meet today, I'm a slash artist, which means I'm a performer slash director slash writer slash teacher slash coach slash choreographer slash producer. And my path to these slashes has been windy and not always that deliberate. I was a small town girl with stars in her eyes. I wanted to be a famous actress. And then I went to college and I was exposed to, among other things, the work of Jacques Lecoq, who is a French director that focuses on the actor-creator and also a dynamic physical theater that uses mime and theatrical clowning and mask. And so 13 years later, I received my MFA in ensemble-based physical theater, and that's really the heart of what I teach and create today. Oops, wrong way. There we go. The types of work and my revenue streams. Today, I'm an associate professor at UMKC. And that is my bread and butter and where most of my income comes from. And that's also where a lot of my art practice lives because I do a lot of work with, original work with the MFA actors. I'm also an actor creator, so my non-academic work, my original solo and ensemble work outside of the university. I'm an equity actor, so sometimes I do real plays with other people's words. Rarely, but I do it. I'm a movement coach and choreographer, again, mostly at UMKC, but I've worked at a couple other professional theaters in town. Most recently, I'm a variety show producer, and I'll talk to you about that a little later. And very recently, I've become a theatrical intimacy coach and choreographer. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it's basically staging anything having to do with nudity, intimacy, and sexuality on stage. So often my work is categorized as devised theater, and that can mean many different things. And the process really depends on the particular project and parameters and the people involved. So recently I read one company defined devising as a collective way of arriving at a finished product through discussion, improvisation, and writing. And I'm down with that definition. In a nutshell, that's really what I do. But how much I spend in each of those stages does really depend on the parameters of the project. So it could be a 6-week process with very little production values, or it could be a 3-year process that is very highly produced. And so these are examples of devised pieces that I've done at UMKC that kind of span that spectrum, right? I prescribe to what the theater director Anne Bogart calls talking something into existence. So when you get an idea in the back of your mind, you really tell people about it. You talk about your dreams, you question it, and then people and opportunities will begin to appear. And I feel like most of my projects in Kansas City, that's really been true for me. I've talked them into existence. First, there was Boom, an international lost and found family marching band. And it was a theatrical band with a backstory. And the funding for that was really piecemeal. So at first, the ensemble members were basically volunteers. We played in bars and we split the door. And then we did the KC Fringe Fest and again, split the proceeds. Eventually, we did a tour, and that was partially funded by a successful Kickstarter, as well as proceeds from my Charlotte Street Foundation Generative Performing Artist Award. I still lost about $2,000 on that. So then we have The Mask of the Broken Heart. This was a one-woman film noir style mask play. And That was partially funded by an inspiration grant from ArtsKC. And then the second iteration of it was and that was a workshop of it, very kind of bare bones. And then the second iteration was a Kansas City Fringe Festival, and that was personal funding as well as proceeds from the Fringe Fest. And this was originally, I created this, my hope was to create an educational touring show. So I would go to do kind of the college circuit, I would give mask workshops and then perform this little piece. And that never happened. And one of the reasons was because at the time, I didn't have the heart or the money to tell my student designer at the time that this beautiful piece that he had welded didn't fit in the back of my Prius. And also it became very tech heavy, light and sound wise. And so I did take it to Kentucky once, and I rented a van, and I hired a tech person to do all the lights and sound. It was very tech heavy. And so that was a great learning experience. Other projects that I've done, personal projects, Write to Me at the Fringe Festival. It was based on a box of about 150 letters that I had found that had been written to me in my 20s. And then the Nelson Atkins Museum Artist Residency. This was through the Charlotte Street Foundation's Every Street is Charlotte Street. And so I took material from Write to Me, which was very intimate, and then I kind of blew it up. I added performers into the Block Museum, and we created a site-specific piece in 2 weeks. And then very recently, last year, about this time, I received an ArtsKC Inspiration Grant again, and to co-produce Late Night Squeeze, a Nocturnal Variety Show at the Squeeze Box Theater. And then again, other revenue streams. I'm a movement coach. Most recently, I did Frida at the KC Rep with Vanessa Severo. I acted in Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime at the Rep, and I did intimacy direction for a new company in town called the Omnivores. So challenges, similar to Karen, I do have a website that I built myself, but it's keeping current. Also, I have a Facebook page. I do have a doing business as Slow Burn Productions. I don't quite know what to do with that because everybody knows me as Stephanie Roberts. So I have to figure that out. But it hasn't become a priority, updating all of that. Another challenge is maintaining a presence and a practice in the KC Arts community while I have this very full and time, 9-month full-time teaching position. So right now, how it works is about I have summers, and every other summer, this summer it was really about professional development. So I went to a conference and I went to a workshop. And then every other summer, I will try to create a piece for the Fringe Festival. That's how it's been going recently. Goals, and this is about these are 5-year goals to obtain full professorship. I'm on track to do that maybe in a couple of years. I'm in the middle of getting my Alexander Technique teacher's certificate, and so that's maybe another 1.5, 2 years away. From doing Late Night Squeeze, I got an idea about. This is maybe something I'll talk into existence, of doing an interdisciplinary, some kind of showcase or festival to produce an interdisciplinary devised showcase. So I can talk about that a little bit later. It's based on a friend of mine in Seattle back in the 80s, did something similar On the Boards. And then another goal is to showcase my original work outside of the region. So fit everything into my Prius. Needs, help with time management and priority setting. Time management in kind of similar to what Karen was saying, not necessarily, I'm pretty good with deadlines and kind of staying ahead of the game when I have a project going, but it is priority setting in that, how do I carve out that kind of time for my passion projects throughout the year? and not get, you know, buried in the work that I'm doing in my academic job, so that it's always a practice or a habit that I'm cultivating, is taking that time to work on my personal projects. I look at residencies, and my partner Don often, you know, he's always looking at them, and he says, "Oh, have you thought of this one?" And I mean, if it's in the school year, I'm like, I don't have time to write that proposal, you know. So how to consider doing those residencies maybe in January or whatever. And then website and social media consultation. I just need help with that. Not only to update it, but to keep it up to date and modern. I think mine's, I know every 2 years it looks old, right? And that's it.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, let's kick off the Q&A. Can we flip through to your...
My needs or...
Tell us a little bit more about the, what will the Alexander Technique Teaching Certificate allow you to do?
Oh, yes. That is, not only will it enhance the work that I do at UMKC, for those of you who don't know about the Alexander Technique, it's a movement practice that allows more freedom and freedom of movement and of breath and awareness of habits, unuseful habits, unuseful physical habits, and then cultivates useful physical habits. And so I can use it with my theater students. I can also use it with musicians, vocalists, and really anyone. And so I can use it in that job, but I can also do a private practice. So that, my plan is to have another revenue stream through private Alexander students or group classes. You can do this, there are very old Alexander ladies, and so I can do this in, I can do this in retirement as well. The famous Alexander teachers are very old ladies.
Great, great.
Wow. What a great resume, and you know, the quality of the work you've done has just always blown me away. It's just terrific.
Thank you.
I understand the priority goal setting issue.
Mm-hmm.
There's, you know, one thing that occurs to me is that some of these are obviously interrelated. I mean, some of what you're doing is clearly on the path to obtaining the full professorship.
Yes, definitely.
So, you know, you kind of, it's sort of a nesting of goals by relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So that what you're really thinking about is not independent goals, but paths. And some of the paths, you know, have certain activities along the way that lead in that direction. And then other possible paths have different activities along the way that lead in that direction. So maybe the answer about priorities is, which direction is pulling you the most strongly? Because you don't have enough time on this earth to do everything you're capable of doing. And so so what's the direction? I believe far more in having a compass than a map. Because you're charting a course into the future, and there is no map. You can't imagine a path that you have not yet walked. but you can feel the direction that you're being drawn in. And it does feel as much an intuitive process and an organic one, and one that rises from within the pre-rational, pre-logical part of your being, as it is an intellectual exercise. In fact, I think trying to force the path is usually a bad idea.
Yes.
So if you're trying to do it all from here, I don't think it works. And I trust you that you're going to be drawing a path that is full of satisfaction and joy and accomplishment. And I just can't wait to see what it ends up being.
Thank you. Yes, it very much was an exercise for this, for this presentation. You know, 2 to 5-year goals. I'm like, well, okay. I know that these are things that are already on the path, but I have this. This has really been an intuitive kind of journey for me, which I think is why I do so many things, is because these things appear for me and I say yes.
Well, an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
You can't discount the role of opportunity.
Right.
But I love the hamburger talking into existence.
Yeah.
And I love number 3 of this too.
Number 3, the
Number 3, yeah.
yeah. I thought, what would it be if I mean, the late night squeeze was fabulous. It was so fun. I met so many artists and diverse artists, and so I thought, what would it be like if I used those particular artists, and I put, say, one of the magicians with an opera singer, and gave them and they were to create something together, right? You saw it, Heather. You know, I put the tap dancer and the yo-yo champion together, or I put, you know, the filmmaker and the hip hop dancer together, right? So, so that's, it's starting now. I'm talking it into existence. So if anyone has money, you can give me for it. You can't, no.
All right, question over here.
Again, because every day I have the good fortune to work with you and to see you create amazing things from nothing all the time, and I've this idea of creating something, you know, talking something into existence is such a daily practice of yours, and is so rooted in joy as I've known it. So I just want to say, and Boom came out of, you know, put the tap dancer with the yo-yo person, you know, put the ping pong player with the, you know, what, you know, the what, whale fan. So anything, you know, just keep talking. I think is what I want to say. Keep talking, and I hope that, you know, this I just say yes to, you know, the late night option was great, but for those who can't stay up till 1 a.m,
Oh yes.
to have this would be great. That's all. Thank you.
Great. Other questions? Can you, right over here?
How do you deal with documentation of your work? Because theater is so ephemeral, and you're kind of very intimate, sort of energetic, physical theater relies a lot on the live audience, I think. But I'd love to see some of your work captured on video. So it could be shared with a audience that literally can't be there via that medium.
It's funny because I'm reading a book about devising right now because I'm starting a new devising, I didn't mention this, a new devising project with second years. And so I'm going back to these old, books and masters in it. And I just read a chapter on documentation yesterday. And the question is, what is the purpose of it? And for me, there's documentation of having a script, right? That in the documentary kind of work that I do at UMKC is a little more, it's more important, obviously for the students and the stage managers and designers and all of that to have a script, but also to perhaps publish someday. Now, I've never done that because my work was so topical that I didn't feel like and so local that I didn't feel like anyone else would want to. But that might be important just to show that this was done and this was done in this way and this is how you can do this kind of theater. For my purpose, I do document it. I do usually hire a professional. If it's not at UMKC, I hire my own professional videographer to document it for purposes of this. If I didn't show a video here, but for getting grants, for work samples. And so I very much do that, and I put together work samples, and that's very important. But another thing that was mentioned in this book is that, as far as just showing it to somebody, it depends. I mean, the mask piece, sure, you can capture the kind of the humor of that and the kind of virtuosity of changing from character to character. But if it's something like what Karen does, or what like Fuerza Bruta did, there's no way that you can capture the visceral experience of the audience in that kind of way. Heaven, right? Imaginable heaven. No, immeasurable. I couldn't remember my own piece. Immeasurable heaven. There's really you couldn't reproduce that. It was part of it was immersive. You walked through. That's not something that the audience could really. So I just use bits of that for grants and things.
A very clever artist I know faced with a similar challenge of documenting the undocumentable realized that this one work that his company had done had produced lots and lots of written audience response afterwards, which people, were literally writing him emails and talking about how profound the experience had been and how much it had really opened their eyes to something, et cetera, et cetera. So there's an anthropological dimension to documentation that is more anecdotal and having to do with response of the audience to it afterwards, which I think might be a very interesting dimension for you to think about with your work. And that might even include some of the performers who afterwards you could ask them to document their growth as a performer, their emotional response to the material, et cetera, et cetera. So there's another layer of documentation there that's sort of a little bit more rarefied, but might be effective.
Yes. The first piece, Slammed, which was about the recession, that documentary piece, we did record all of the talk. We had talkbacks after every performance, and we did record, a sound design student recorded each one. And so that's something that I think we can do in the future as well. Thank you.
Can you flip to your challenges slide? Oops. Okay. And then, do you set aside a time during the week to work with your social media and or just your media?
Nope. It's really pretty piecemeal. I mean, it is. I mean, I because I knew people would probably go to it after today, for the first time in months, I updated it so this is on it, and my next piece, my last piece was on it. So I'm like, oh wait, if the curious incident's not happening now. Yeah, so that is something that could be a habit, a weekly habit.
Yeah, especially think like Wednesday. I heard Wednesday afternoons are prime time on Facebook. So, so if you want to force yourself, that's a good day to make that happen. So.
Great.
It sounded to me, though, like what you really wanted to carve out time for was the more creative part, rather than the not that the teaching part isn't creative, but that other piece of you,
Right.
rather than your website.
Yeah. I mean,
Do you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
So if you're going to take
true.
Wednesday afternoons or
Yeah.
sometime in your schedule,
Yeah, it might be more about, what are some, how can I brainstorm about this interdisciplinary thing?
yes, rather than, and then maybe give that to somebody else to do.
Exactly.
I mean, I do think
Yeah.
so. I think there are people who
could.
really like to do that.
Yeah,
Finding them.
and are better at it than, all of my students are better. I could hire a student to do it for me.
Yeah, you have great connections in that area.
I was going to say the intern thing is always coming up, right? So for your social media, do you know that on Facebook, if you have something new like today or something that's ongoing, you can pin that post to the very top of your page, or maybe it's something very specific you want people to know about you, and that'll take that pressure off. And maybe you just glance at your Facebook page every quarter, and that'll take a little pressure off, because it does take time to source and get the materials and put what you want out there, and you're limited to the amount of reach that you're going to get. Facebook's changed everything.
Yeah.
So that pinning may be something very beneficial for you. And then other than that, if you're really that interested in it, you might consider looking around UMKC for a department where there would be a student intern. I realize you want to try to match the creative with a knowledge of social media, and that might be tricky, but that intern might be able to really kind of help get things going for you in a way that is difficult when you are trying to run your own business. So.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, again, Karen will be available after networking, and Stephanie will be available after networking, and thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming here today.